Now, most people have heard of those stereotypical horror stories, you know the ones, where there's a scary demon in the basement, a monster lurking around the woods, or even an axe murderer who hunts kids along the highway. But my story doesn't come along with its own urban legend to keep you up at night, or some type of ghostly apparition who sucked out my soul. No. My story had the green lights. What are the green lights? You might be asking. Well, I'm not too sure. I can sort of remember when they started, but it's been so long that the details may be fuzzy, so bear with me. When I was about 7 years old, my mother and father moved us into a small home in the outskirts of an even smaller town in North Carolina. Now, my parents still lived there, so I won't reveal the town's name for their privacy, but you can guess how it was. Miles and miles of unbothered land, the neighbours so far away you'd have to strain your eyes to even see their driveway. Before then, we had been living in an apartment in a shady part of Brooklyn, and even now I don't fully know the reason as to why we moved halfway down the East Coast, but my parents always said that they needed a change of scene, which I didn't really care too much about. I mean, at 7, the only thing I cared about was Power Rangers. I was bummed to leave my friends, of course, but my parents surprised me with a trip to a local shelter as soon as we got down to North Carolina. "You're a big girl now," my mum said, "and since we have a lot of space in our new house, you can get a dog." I was over the moon at this, and excitedly scoured the shelter for the perfect dog. And eventually, I did find one, an old mutt with brown fur and blue eyes. My parents thought that he looked rather grim and tried to make me pick a new dog, but he was the one I wanted. Rufus, I had named him, would come to be my best friend during all the years I lived in that house. So here was me, my parents and Rufus, and things were basically normal until one day I noticed them. Green lights in the sky. And not like airplane lights or any type of cell tower anything. This was the early 2000s, and there was hardly anything like that then. Especially not so far out in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't really bothered by the lights at first. They were just kind of there. They sat high in the sky and shined brightly. But when I mentioned them to my parents, they couldn't see what I was talking about. I was confused. How could they not see? Big green orbs, shining vibrantly and never even flickered. But they thought that maybe I was playing a trick on them, and told me that being a liar wasn't nice. I tried to explain that I wasn't lying, but with no evidence that they could see, it was useless. I was sent to my room and given a stern talking to about fibbing. My parents weren't necessarily strict, but they had rules that I was to follow, and being truthful was one of them. I sat on my bed that night and kept gazing at those lights. After a few minutes, they seemed to get closer to me, drawing me in to their heavenly appearance. My head started to ache, and I seemingly had to force myself to look away from the orbs, and after I did, they drew back to their place high above. The experience didn't make sense to me then, and it hardly does now. All I can explain it as is a trance. The lights had possessed me, and it felt like they were supposed to, but after that night I had to compel myself not to catch the lights in my eyes, or else I would go back to my trance-like state, and who knows if I'd come back from it. For months, I noticed myself having an urge in the back of my head, itching to see the lights, but I had to use every ounce in my body to fight it. It scared me, a lot more then than now, but I was 7 and all alone. My parents didn't want to hear my rambling about the lights, or else I get sent to my room or get my television time reduced to nothing. I had a silent battle with the lights for years and years. Each night I almost found myself slipping away to them. In some instances, like when there was a full moon, the lights would leave me. On those nights I cried. Not for any reason that was sad or angry, but I cried tears of relief. relief from the urges in my mind and nagging from the sky, begging me to go and join it. I went to stay with my grandma back in New York for a summer when I was 15. The whole summer was spent in the city, foggy skies, and not a green light in sight. That summer was the most joyous and carefree time of my life. But when I had to go back home, I once again cried. This time, though, it was fear. I was afraid to go back home and have to avoid the lights all over again. One night, on one of the last few nights I stayed with my grandma, I broke down and told her all about the lights and how they made me want to go with them into a night sky. She consoled me and gave me something. It was a necklace that she had gotten from a merchant in Chinatown. It was apparently made with lepidolite, and she had told me that it will help ease me of the lights calling. Maybe she thought I was crazy or something, but I truly believed what she told me and carried the necklace on me wherever I went. On the night I returned home, I had prayed that Grandma was right and that the necklace will cure me. Maybe it was some type of placebo, but it did. I slept better that night than I ever had at home before. No headache, no urging, just peace. I called my grandma on the phone the next morning and thanked her greatly for the gift and told her how much it helped. She gave me a kind laugh and welcomed me. For the next 3 years, I hardly ever took the necklace off, only ever to shower in the morning. I moved out when I was 18 to go to college, but I, unfortunately, lost my necklace in the move. I searched all of my boxes for hours, thinking that I might have accidentally thrown it in there without thinking, but to no avail. My necklace was gone. My college was 3 hours away though, and I rarely visited home because of it, so I tried not to worry too much about my lost gem. But now, because of this pandemic, I moved back in with my parents for the time being. At first, I had forgotten about the lights and all the years of my torment due to them, but soon it all came back to me. One night, I heard a calling for my name. Now, it wasn't a physical noise, but an emotional one. My head started to ache and my chest felt tight. I soon recognized my feelings and realized it was the lights, the things from my childhood that I had buried deep in my mind. But this time, something changed. I had allowed myself to gaze into the present for one last time. Maybe if I just look at them for one more time, all the begging and urging would stop. I felt the lights pull me harder. They captured me in, and it was too late for me to let go. But it isn't so bad. Not like I thought. The lights, they were warm and inviting, gracefully pulling me into them, and I wanted to be there too. I want to be there. And I'm writing this now with a certain type of clarity I never had in my mind before. And I urge all of you, if you ever see the green light loom over you in the night sky, allow them to take you too.